Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the question and answer sessions about the validation process and how to become an engineer in Australia. And this is following the free online workshop, Engineer Journey 2023, that just finished last week after a full week of learning. And I hope that you guys learned the whole process and you're ready to start preparing, start your organization of your application process to become an engineer in Australia. And for those that don't know me, my name is Gerson Ida. I'm the founder of the website www.engineersinaustralia.com, a website that I created back in 2019 to share my knowledge and information about the validation process here in Australia to help you guys. So your journey is just going to be much easier than mine when I did my validation back in 2005. Okay, so I've selected few questions for tonight, and they kind of in different topics. There's so many topics. There's English, there's career episode, the summary statement, experiences, summary statement, plagiarism, documentation, translation, English, the steps, and also about the jobs as an engineer. So there's so many topics that I've selected few questions from each topic, not all of the topics, but some topics, and I will cover tonight. And if you have a particular question, might as well write in the comments, and if I don't have that question in the list that I'm going to cover this week, I will be adding to the list. Okay, so one question from those people that sent from SurveyMonkey came from a chemical engineer. How to write the career episodes? It's a very simple question. But unfortunately, the answer is not that simple. The answer, I can talk about a full live session just about how to write a very good career episode. But tonight is not really going to be the objective. In live number 3 during the workshop, I spoke and gave many details about the career episodes. So tonight I'm going to give some information, the basic information about how to write a very good career episode. Well, first of all, the career episode is one of the report types that you need to prepare for your validation process. And you need to write 3 career episodes if you're going to follow the CDR pathway, the Competency Demonstration Report. So if you are from, and I have a very, very bad memory, just for maybe some people that because of the name, I probably can guess where they are, but I'm very good. So if you guys can put where you're from and what type of engineering you are, it will refresh my mind, and then I can, when I answer the questions, I can probably relate to some of the field of your engineering, and perhaps some specific details about if your country, you got to follow this pathway or you got to follow the other pathway. Okay, so how to write the career episodes? As I said, CDR pathway, Competency Demonstration Report. If you are from, let's say, like me, from Brazil, Brazil is not a full signatory of the International Engineering Alliance, Washington Accord, so I had to go through the CDR pathway, Competency Demonstration Report, for my migration skills assessment. And the career episodes that you need to write, you need to choose an engineering experience. Remember, you have to write 3 career episodes, so you need to think about 3 experiences. And the engineering experience can be either from your academic experience or from your work experience. The important things about the career episode experience, it needs to be a little bit complex in nature. complex because then you can address all the 16 competencies that Engineers Australia requires you to address. It needs to be, the experience needs to be matching with the definition of the ANZ SEO occupation definition. The ANZ SEO stands for the Australian and New Zealand Standard Classification of Occupation. And that is the definition that the Australian government, they use to define what an occupation is about. For example, civil engineer, it talks about planning, designing, analyzing, calculating, delivering infrastructure projects, heavy projects like dams, bridges, roads, water treatment systems, and those sort of things. So not in these words, but in that context. And you need to make sure that your experience is matching with the definition of the ANZ SEO. And then the career episode is going to be a report between about 1,000 words and 2,500 words, divided in a structure that's basically your introduction, your background, your personal engineering activity, and the summary of your career episodes. And very important that in the career episode, you need to talk about a project, a position that you occupied, or a problem, engineering problem that you solved. But most importantly, what you did, how you did it, what sort of engineering judgment and skills you've utilized, what did you achieve, and what were the outcomes. So all of that, obviously, when you write each paragraph, you need to be writing, addressing the competencies. So very, very briefly, this is how you write a career episode. The other question is about that's a very important, interesting question. Can a civil engineer be validated into environmental engineer considering the professional experience? Yeah, that's a good question. And the answer is depends. Obviously, it's much easier if you graduated in one field of engineering. Let's say if you graduated as a civil engineer and then you apply to be validated as a civil engineer, it's pretty much straightforward. But if you are a civil engineer and then because your experience is like environmental engineer, like in this question looks like, you are then trying to be validated as an environmental engineer, you need to be a little bit careful. And that will depend on the assessors, the Engineers Australia assessors' interpretation of the experiences that you're going to describe. But basically, you need to prove somehow that even if you had a lot of experience in environmental engineering, remember, competency is about knowledge, the application of that knowledge, and confirmation that you did via your supervisor. So you have to have the three pieces of evidence: your knowledge, your application of the knowledge, and confirmation from the supervisor. Having work experience as an environmental engineer, but if you graduated as a civil engineer, you may have the experience and confirmation from your supervisor. You could be lacking the theoretical knowledge, which here in Australia, and I've seen already many feedbacks from engineers that came to me asking for help about that engineer didn't really have the underpinning knowledge of that engineering. So let's say you're a civil engineer trying to validate as an environmental engineer. Even if you demonstrate that you did work experience as an environmental engineer, your boss, your supervisor confirmed that. But if you don't have the underpinning knowledge of the environmental engineering, the assessor may come back to you and say, sorry, but even though you have experience, but your experience does not give you the fundamental underpinning knowledge of environmental engineering. Unless you can prove that in your curriculum, your academic curriculum or the course curriculum, you had enough environmental subjects that gave you that fundamental underpinning knowledge of environmental engineering. So it is very complicated. It can be done. I've seen already, for example, electrical engineers being validated as electronics engineers, telecommunication engineers being validated as electronics engineer, because they're very close related. So civil engineer being validated as structural engineers. Very close related. You can demonstrate that you have that theoretical underpinning knowledge from the engineering bachelor degree. Okay. The other question came from an industrial engineer. How can I support my experience since I have been in Australia and I have not worked as an engineer? So yeah, that was a short question. I'm guessing that the person arrived here in Australia and didn't work as an engineer. So the good news is that if you haven't worked as an engineer here in Australia, Engineers Australia does not really require Australian experience. In fact, Engineers Australia doesn't require any work experience. You can be validated as an engineer just using your academic engineering experience. If you don't have work experience, or if your work experience is not really relevant. So you don't need to support your experience because you don't need to. If you have work experience from your home country, and if that experience is relevant according to the ANZ SEO occupation definition, you can use that work experience from your country of origin. Okay. There's a question from a civil engineer, a very short question. What's the first step? What's the first step for the validation process? Can you guys write in the comments if you participated in the workshop and if you participated in last night's live session? You will know what is the first step that I always talk about. Can you guess? Write in the comments. Can you guess what is the first step that you need to have to start your validation process? Let's see how many of you remember what I said. And I know that there is some 40 seconds delay, so sometimes I ask the question and then I gotta wait a little bit or talk about something else until you guys actually can hear my question. So let's see, what is the first step? Yeah, that's it can be obviously many things, but there's probably two things that I usually say what is the first step. See if you guys are a bit shy tonight. No? There is one question here from ce.noroes. Sorry, but I don't know what is your name, so I can just read from your profile. Technical and electrotechnica, so it must be electrotechnic technician. Graduated in FESP, experience in must be high voltage. Is there chances to be validated? Yeah, I believe there is. You can probably, if you're a technician, you can validate as engineering associate. That would be the category that you would be applying for. And electrotechnica, and if you have experience in high voltage, yeah, looks like you could use your experience to write your career episodes. You could even choose some of your course subjects to be validated. Well, you guys are a bit shy tonight, so I'll tell what's the first step. The first step is to overcome procrastination and decide that you want to be validated. So that is the first step. Some people say, oh yeah, you gotta read the booklet. Yes, you have to read the booklet. You have to read once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 10 times. But reading the booklet, it's not enough. Especially if you have not decided yet that you want to become an engineer in Australia. If you haven't overcome procrastination, because as I said in the opening webinar, when I spoke about procrastination, you will have a lot of conflicting objectives. There will be people, and as it happened in the beginning, the first day of the workshop, there were many people. I think we had about almost 60, 70 people combining Instagram and YouTube. About 70 people that participated in the opening webinar. In the closing webinar, there were about 35 that kind of on and off and that came during the live session in Instagram and YouTube. So we lost about half. And even the half that stayed there, there were just probably a few that stayed for the whole session. And those ones that are really determined to become an engineer in Australia. So the first step is for you to put in your head that I will become an engineer in Australia. Because it's not easy. I said that throughout the workshop. Even though the process is simple, it's not easy to become an engineer in Australia. Obviously, it's not easy. You got to think that at university in your home country was not easy. And Australia is not going to make it very easy to accept overseas engineers, because they need to make sure that the engineers that are going to validate here in Australia, they are competent. Because when they become autonomous engineers, that they don't need to be supervised, it is in a way, it's about public safety. If you read the Code of Ethics in Engineers Australia, it talks about public safety. Because an engineer here will calculate, will deliver some very important projects that will be utilized by the public. And if you do something wrong, you can jeopardize public's safety. And obviously that's not acceptable. So the government of Australia and Engineers Australia needs to make sure that the engineers that are validated to work here in Australia, they are certainly competent. So the first step is to decide, put in your head that you will become an engineer in Australia, and you will overcome all the procrastination, you will overcome all the conflicting objectives. So that would be the first step. The other question that I selected here: what are the risks during the process? Yeah, that's another topic that I could be talking the whole night about it. I'm just going to mention some of the risks that can happen during the process. Well, first of all, there is the risk of you giving up. Oh yeah, Jason, but yeah, I'm not going to give up. Yeah, you may not. If you really decided to become an engineer, you will not. But there will be engineers that will. And I've seen many of them that they, for some whatever reason, they gave up. And I'm not here to judge why they gave up or not. I'm just saying that there is a big risk that you will start the process and you will never finish. Maybe because you got your visa from other means. Maybe you don't need a visa anymore. Or maybe you got a job that you don't need to be validated and you got your visa from a sponsorship or something else. Or maybe you just decided to give up and you're going back to your country. So that is one risk during the process. Another risk during the process is that you will not get your English test score. Some people, they don't really have a good English and they don't really do much to improve their English. And even though the minimum score is not impossible to get, if your English is not good and if you don't put effort to improve your English, you will not going to get your English score. And if you don't get the minimum English score in the 4 bands, reading, listening, speaking, and writing, you will not be able to apply for your validation because the English test score is a requirement for you to be validated as an engineer. Another risk is that you will find that your work experience is not really relevant to the occupation. You've worked a lot, but the work that you did doesn't really match with the definition of the Engineers Australia. ANZ SEO occupation that Engineers Australia follows. And then you try to go back to your academic studies to see if you can find something, and you can't find anything because you are not really a very good student, or you didn't really do much at university, or the way that you did, you just did just to pass, and the subjects and the projects and the reports that you did, they're not really relevant as well. So that could be a risk, that you cannot find a relevant experience to use in your career episode. Another risk that you find is that you don't have money to do the validation process, because you will need money. You will need probably about $2,000 because you need to pay for the Engineers Australia assessment, which is going to cost you between $900 and $1,000. You will need to do your English test, which is going to cost you about $450. You will need to translate some documents, especially because you're talking about overseas engineers. So you may have documents that are written in your own language and you need to translate them. So you need money to translate your documents. So if you have 10 pages, you could be spending $300-400 plus the English test plus the Engineers Australia fee. Yeah, you can easily get to $2,000. And if you don't have $2,000 to spare, you cannot apply for your validation process, and therefore there's a risk that you're not going to be validated. There is a risk of the competing objectives. Maybe you don't want to give up some time to work because you don't want to not make that money and then invest that time to do your validation process, because you will need to spare some time to do your validation process. Minimum, I think you need to spend at least 5 hours a week, but very strict 5 hours a week just doing that. If you do 5 hours a week, I think in 3 months you will finish. But some people, they don't even do that because they working, they studying, they get tired, they go out, etc., and then they don't have spare time. And you need to find some spare time. So that's the risk. You don't have the priority to validate your qualification. And also the risks of not understanding what you need to do, the risks of not organizing very well the documentation and the examples and the information that you have, the risk of not understanding how to do the summary statement, so you really address the competencies very, very well. And obviously then it ultimately goes to the risk of not being approved because you didn't choose the right experience, or you didn't address the competencies in the summary statement, or even the risk of plagiarism because you ended up copying from somebody else, or you ask somebody else to write for you. So these are just some of the risks that potentially could happen if you're doing your validation process. The other question, which is very common, how long does it take to validate? As I said before, if you invest about 5 hours a week, you're probably going to take about 3 months. If you know what you're doing, if you know the step-by-step. For example, if you are one of my mentoring students, if you put 5 hours a week, easily you will take 3 months, and it will be a very, very strong application. I have students that they did it already in 2.5 weeks because they were pressured by the visa that was expiring, so they had to finish in very, very short time frame. But I don't advise that to happen. Why is that? Because in the beginning, you have the risk of putting a lot of time in the beginning to think. Let's say that you take a weekend and you decide, all right, I'm going to take this weekend, I'm going to write a full career episode. It's not a good idea because the beginning of your career episode could be very good, but towards the end, your brain will be tired. You're probably not going to be thinking very well. The quality of your career episode is not going to be good, probably from the middle to the end, because you will be tired, your brain will be tired, and you just want to finish. And if your brain thinks that you just want to finish, you're just going to write whatever. So I don't really advise you to do like a marathon and write everything in just one go. You need to think about it, write a little bit, have a very good quality paragraph, and then, or paragraphs, and then have a little bit of a rest, have your brain kind of refreshed, and then write again. In that way, you're always going to keep a high quality in your paragraphs. And then, how long does it take for the Engineers Australia to give your result? If you apply for the standard time frame, which is the standard CDR process, it's probably going to take between 8 to 15 weeks, depending on how busy is the assessor. If you pay fast track, you gotta pay another $350, I think. You will probably get your result in about 30 days. So if everything goes according to the plan, if Engineers Australia then gives you a feedback saying that you need to add more information or change things or documentation, etc., they give you usually 30 days for you to reply back. But once you reply, they pretty quick. Obviously, if you reply with the right thing, it's pretty quick. They're probably going to approve you if everything is according to the plan. They'll approve you on the same day or same week that you submit your response back to Engineers Australia. All right, guys, we're almost 30 minutes already, and I promised that was going to be about 30 minutes. So I'm going to answer a last question. I'd just like to let you know, guys, that I have my online mentoring program with the enrollments open, and until next Sunday, you have the opportunity to be part of this new group, and the link is in the comments. And you still take advantage of a very good discount. You will get $600 discount. Those ones that were clever enough and they enrolled in the first day until Friday, they got $800 discount plus the extra 9 bonuses. But if you procrastinated and you're still thinking about it, that's going to cost you an extra $200. So, but it's still a very affordable investment. It's just $1,147 for the mentoring program, and you will get 9 extra bonuses as well. Just the bonuses, they're worth about $1,800, and you're going to get all the bonuses for free. So the investment that you're going to pay for the mentoring program, including the 9 bonuses, is much less than just the bonus themselves. So enrollments are open until Sunday, this coming Sunday, the 22nd of October, 11:59 p.m. And after that, I don't know if I'm going to open another group this year. Maybe I will, maybe not. I'll see what's going to be the feedback. So the last question for tonight, and remembering that tomorrow evening, 8 p.m. Brisbane time, I'm going to have another question and answer session, and I'm going to be delivering the first of the 15 minutes of free consulting that I promised that I was going to do. And tomorrow is going to be with Ana Flavia. She's one of the lucky winners of the free 15 minutes consulting. So I'm going to have the session with her, and then I'm going to keep going with the question and answers. And then on Wednesday, the 18th, 8 p.m. Brisbane time, I'm going to have the second free 15 minutes of free consulting with Camila. Camila was going to do tonight, but we had to reschedule. So it's going to be Wednesday. And after the session with her, I'll keep going with answering questions. And then on Friday, 10 a.m. Brisbane time, is going to be the free consulting with Caio, which was also the lucky winner of the 15 minutes of free consulting. And after that, I will also be answering some questions. And I'm going to have a last live session on Sunday. So I'm seriously thinking about giving another 15 minutes of free consulting. So keep an eye on the WhatsApp group and in my Instagram, because I might, if I decide to give another 15 minutes of free consulting, we're probably going to do an Instagram post asking for your engagement, and probably in one of the live sessions I will do the draw. So make sure that you follow my Instagram profile and you keep an eye in the posts, because I can decide to give another 15 minutes of free consulting. The last question is, if Engineers Australia doesn't validate my process, can I try again? That came from an electrical engineer. Well, what do you think? Can you? And the answer is, you can always try again. The only but is how long you have to wait. If you get caught because of plagiarism and your process was not approved because you got caught by plagiarism, you need to wait until the banning period expires. So if you are banned for 3 years because of plagiarism, then you need to wait 3 years until you can reapply. But if your process was not approved because you simply didn't write a good career episode, or didn't write a good summary statement, or documents were missing or something like that, you can apply at any time. Obviously, you're not going to apply with the same thing. You need to apply with a different application, with a different experience, because if you're going to use the same experience, right, in the same thing, you're probably not going to be approved again. But you don't need to wait. You can, if you want, you can straight away write a new career episode or career episodes and then reapply. But you need to pay everything again, and you gotta do a new application. Remembering that if you're not approved, you can always, if you believe you have reasons to be approved, you can always ask for an informal review. And if Engineers Australia doesn't approve after your informal review, you can still apply for your formal appeal. Remembering that that still costs money, and you have to wait a substantial period of time as well. All right, guys. I think that we finished for tonight. Remember to make sure that you participate in tomorrow evening's live session with the free consulting. And obviously, if you didn't win, but I encourage you to participate, because the questions that I'm going to be answering to Ana Flavia, which was one of the winners of the free consulting, can be also your question. And her doubts can be your doubts as well. So if you participate in tomorrow evening free consulting and question and answer session, you will also be benefited with the answers that I'm going to give to her. Okay. All right. So I would like to thank you guys very much for your participation and engagement. And I hope to see you tomorrow, 8 p.m. Brisbane time, in the free consulting and question and answer sessions here in YouTube and Instagram. Thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.